crash in Georgia leaves 23 dead, including a NASA astronaut and a U.S. senator.
Anytime there's a high-profile case, there's work, stress, and pressure on you.
In search of the cause,
we've got to see what happens in the air.
Investigator Tom Howder gambles on a risky hunch.
When I first proposed doing the flight test, it was not well received.
He puts his reputation and the life of a skilled test pilot on the line.
EMB 120, do you copy?
Copy. This was, in my opinion, a very dangerous maneuver.
What if this airplane crashes? What if we lose the airplane? The risks, of course, is part of the game.
Atlantic Southeast Airlines Flight 2311 cruises at 15,000 feet.
It's the Braves' year. I feel it.
Sorry, I don't want to get my hopes up. Last year, still hurts.
At the controls is Captain Mark Friedline. The 34-year-old is an experienced pilot with almost 12,000 flight hours.
We got storm clouds ahead of us.
Yep. What do you want to do?
First Officer Hank Johnston is 36. He's been flying with Atlantic Southeast Airlines for nearly 3 years.
We're going to go around him. Tell Center we'll go right.
Center ASA 2311, we'd like to request a deviation for some weather.
This was a normal day in the life of the crew. Nothing untoward had happened, and I doubt they were expecting any difficulties with the flight.
ASA 2311, roger that. Weather deviation approved at your discretions. Maintain current altitude.
Okay, thanks, Center 2311.
Let's go 20 degrees to the right.
Today's flight is a short commuter route from Atlanta, Georgia, to the city of Brunswick on the Atlantic coast.
This is Captain Friedline on the flat deck.
We've got a bit of weather ahead of us, but we're going to go around it and give you a pretty smooth ride. Might hit a few bumps, but nothing to worry about.
We do ask you to return to your seats, and please make sure your safety belts are fastened.
The Embraer 120 banks gently as the pilots deviate around the storm.
The Embraer EMB 120 is designed for commuter-type operations. It takes approximately 30 people on short-haul flights between city centers.
The commuter airplane is powered by 2 turboprop engines.
Turboprops differ from jet engines because instead of using the exhaust to power the aircraft, they use a propeller, which is more fuel efficient and is more suited for these smaller aircraft.
Today, there are 20 passengers aboard, including NASA astronaut Sonny Carter.
Thank you so much. You're a star.
As part of the Space Shuttle Discovery's crew, Sonny Carter orbited the Earth for 120 hours, circling the planet 79 times. Frederick Gregory served with Carter on that mission.
Sonny was not only an astronaut, he was a Renaissance man. He was an engineer, he was a medical doctor, he was a Navy pilot. At a very young age, he had accomplished things that even one of which would have been an outstanding achievement for just any other person.
Also on the flight is another high-profile figure, former Senator John Tower. Tower served 4 terms in the U.S. Senate. A leading Republican, he was an advisor to Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush.
And we're still running 20 minutes late.
Yep. Well,
gonna be helped.
Before takeoff, Flight 2311 was delayed due to a mechanical problem. The crew was forced to switch planes.
There was a last-minute change in the aircraft, which, while uncommon, is not extraordinary, and it would not have thrown the crew.
These small planes do keep you on your toes.
The new plane is running smoothly as it leaves the storm clouds behind and nears its destination. Glencoe Airport is a former airbase with just one runway. It's used by private planes and small commuter airlines flying to the Georgia coast. The flight attendant prepares the cabin for landing.
Runway's in sight.
The crew is just 5 minutes from touching down.
ASA 2311, report in sight. Expect a visual.
We do have it in sight, 2311.
Slowing for approach speed.
The aircraft was normal. There was nothing unexpected.
Gear down.
Gear down. 3 green.
Then, the captain notices an unusual sound.
It's weird. Number one seems to be spinning faster. The left is pulling a bit more. Bringing power down to the left.
Captain Friedline tries to compensate for the plane's unexplained pull to the left. Flight 2311 is less than 1,000 feet from the ground, and the plane is getting more and more difficult to control.
What's going on? See anything?
The crew were apparently caught completely by surprise by something.
What's going on with this thing? I can't hold it. Get out of it, Jim! Come on!
The plane is rolling to the left, and the crew doesn't know why.
The crew would have instinctively applied opposite aileron, moving the stick to the right, to try and prevent the aircraft from rolling as it went.
Come on, guys. Get us out of this.
Come on! God, Jim!
I think they would have been preoccupied with trying to stop the roll, maybe to the extent of not knowing just how much peril they were in.
Do what I do. Grab your ankles, head down, okay?
Captain Friedline fights desperately to save his plane. It's no use.
The aircraft crashed in the middle of woods, which would have made the job of the first responders and firefighting teams quite difficult.
Rescuers make their way through the dense brush, but when they reach the crash site, they find no one alive to rescue. All 20 passengers and 3 crew members are dead, killed at the moment of impact.
It was a catastrophic crash. There was no chance for survival.
With 2 high-profile passengers on board, the crash of Flight 2311 makes headlines around the world.
In this particular accident, Senator Tao on board, who was a 4-term senator, was killed, which raised the profile of the accident a great deal, both from the investigation point of view and the public and the media.
And we're, at this moment, beginning the on-scene phases of the investigation.
I was in Spain when the accident occurred. When I got on the plane to head back, the pilot told me that one of the astronauts had been killed and that his name was Carter. I was in shock because Sonny and I had had an amazing relationship for years. We were like brothers.
Wreckage is still smoldering when Jim Ritter arrives at the crash site. Though an experienced investigator with the National Transportation Safety Board, Ritter is struck by what he sees.
My God. There was a lot of fire damage in the wreckage, and the airplane was basically totally destroyed.
Ritter quickly realizes he's facing one of the biggest challenges of his career.
Anytime there's a high-profile case, you're a little more nervous. There's more stress and pressure on you to come up with a cause for the accident.
The pressure is on to figure out what happened aboard Flight 2311. In Glynn County, Georgia, investigators search for answers at the crash site of Flight 2311. Several people at a nearby trailer park saw the plane go down.
And it come right over top of the house, and it got real loud. It was coming right over these trees here, and then it got extra loud.
The eyewitnesses saw an extreme left roll angle from the airplane, and so we knew that it was some kind of catastrophic failure, a very abrupt failure that would have been difficult for the flight crew to overcome.
Okay, let's start here and work backwards to first impact. I want a record of everything.
You need to look at the crash site to collect the physical evidence. That's the most important aspect of any aircraft investigation.
Investigators look at the wreckage to try and evaluate the sequence of events leading to the crash. They look for the 2 wingtips, the tip of the tail, the tip of the nose.
A survey of the crash site soon confirms those key pieces are among the wreckage.
That tells us that there was no in-flight breakup and that the airplane stayed intact until it collided with the ground.
Get a shot of this wing for me, please.
For expert investigators, the size and shape of the impact zone is also a clue.
If an aircraft, particularly through trees, has a long swath cut through the trees, the investigators get an idea that the aircraft hit the ground approximately flat in a shallow descent. In this case, the wreckage was very concentrated, which indicated the aircraft hit the ground at a very steep angle.
We need to get some measurements on these trees.
Investigators hope the broken trees will shed light on witness statements about the way the plane was flying.
Seen it fly overhead, and it looked like it was making a wide right turn, but it was unusual because when it turned out, the nose started heading towards the ground, and I was right up toward the entrance of Touchstone, and I heard the explosion and seen the fire and the smoke.
When the plane crashed, it sheared the tops off of many of the trees in the woods there. And so one of the things that we did was we measured the heights of the trees where the tops were sheared off, and that was able to give us a fairly good idea of the roll angle, which was a large left roll. In the plane, you would have felt light in your seat. You would have turned, obviously, to the left at almost 90 degrees.
Get out of it! Come on!
You know, it would have been a traumatic experience.
Come on, guys. Get us out of this.
What could make it roll so far over?
When the airplane rolled to the left, it could really only be due to two things. Perhaps the pilot wanted to roll to the left, or there was a malfunction that the pilots couldn't counteract.
What do you got for me?
Ritter examines airport flight records. He's looking for anything that might have triggered the deadly roll.
Clear skies on approach. Almost zero traffic.
There were no other airplanes in the area to avoid. It was a nice clear day, so we didn't really have an explanation for why the airplane rolled so violently to the left.
Ritter won't be getting an explanation from any onboard flight recorders. At the time of the crash, commuter planes aren't required to carry them. Investigators will have to solve the mystery of Flight 2311 without one of their most useful tools.
Not having those made the physical evidence all the more important.
What do you got for me? This is the third one.
The engines have been badly damaged in the crash. The propeller blades have been torn off. Did Flight 2311 suffer some kind of engine failure? It's too soon to say. One thing Ritter does know is that the pressure he's feeling from the media is not about to let up. The deaths of Senator Tower and astronaut Sonny Carter are sure to keep the investigation in the spotlight. Ritter is determined not to let that pressure get to him.
Sometimes we feel pressure to do an investigation quickly, but for the most part, it's more important to get it right. And so I would rather take the time and have a good analysis of the evidence before they come out with a probable cause.
We won't find our answers here. Let's get what we can back to the hangar. Wings, tail, engines, instruments.
The question now, can he find enough evidence to ever solve the mystery of Flight 2311? Investigators begin the painstaking task of sorting through the wreckage of Flight 2311. They're searching for any evidence that might hint at why the Embraer 120 rolled sharply to the left and crashed, killing everyone on board.
All right, guys, let's start with the ailerons.
They wonder if one of the plane's flight control surfaces was malfunctioning.
Control surfaces are the movable flaps typically at the back of the wings, the tail, and the fin, which allow the pilot to roll the aircraft, to pitch the aircraft, and to yaw the aircraft. The three motions an aircraft can do.
They need to examine every component of the flight control system.
What you're looking for is continuity of the controls. Are the hinges all intact? All the actuators are in their proper position? Were the control surfaces themselves in a reasonable position at the time of impact?
Ailerons look good.
When we examined the control surfaces, we didn't find anything unusual at all. Everything checked out normally.
So if the control systems were all working, why would a plane do this? Left bank, almost 90 degrees, then almost straight down. Maybe the engine?
Without the black boxes, it's basically a process of elimination. We analyze all of the physical evidence and come up with the most compelling scenario that matches that evidence.
All right, let's see what we can find in here.
If one of the plane's two turboprop engines failed, it might explain why the plane went into such a steep roll.
We wanted to look for any indications of an engine problem, so we retrieved both the left and the right engine and their propeller systems and took those back to the laboratory for further examination.
Investigators soon find some telltale evidence. Leaves and branches inside the engines.
When we find vegetation in the engines, that tells us that the engine is operating because it's sucking in air and it's pulling in the leaves and the vegetation, and that's an indication that it's making power.
This one was spinning to the very end, no doubt about it.
We confirmed that both engines were operating right up until the moment of impact.
With engine failure ruled out, Ritter turns his attention to the other main part of the plane's propulsion system.
Let's take a look at these propellers. Thank you.
Tom Howder is an NTSB investigator.
When we started doing testing the propeller system, we didn't know it was going to lead us, but it was something we had to eliminate, if nothing else.
Deep inside the propeller unit, investigators uncover an important clue.
Aha! There you are. We have a witness mark. Take a look.
There's a small mark where two parts of the propeller mechanism slam together on impact. The witness mark might be enough to tell investigators how the propellers were operating.
You can literally match up the scratch marks between both pieces, and you'll know what the angle of the propeller blade was from that measurement.
I'll mark this one. 22 degrees.
The Embraer 120 has what's called a constant speed propeller. The blades spin at a steady rate in flight. When the pilots need more power, the blades twist, changing their angle to take a bigger bite out of the air and provide more thrust.